Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing today on Wonderful Wednesday? And again, as always, it's another great day to be alive and another gift, not only to receive, but to give as well. And you know what that means on Wednesdays? It is Conversation for Humanity time. And our special guest today on Conversation for Humanity is none other than Tereza, all the way from the West Coast. So she is here, ready to spend her time, maybe even her lunch, because I know after she eats uh, up this great and engaging conversation, she's going to eat up even bigger lunch afterwards, because I guarantee you she's going to have this great conversation really going. But again, Teresa, we're just so humble and honored to have you here today. How are you doing today on Wonderful Wednesday?
Fantastic. Better and better. And thank you, Chris. Thank you for hosting. Thank you. I'm honored and so happy to be here with you today on, I call it Wisdom Wednesday, and I call it
Oh,
Wine.
I like that.
Yeah, Wisdom Wednesday and Wine Wednesday for my virtual wine concierge peeps and all of that world. How are
So,
you doing today?
I want to start the conversation off, and I truly always do it in this kind of dynamic because I truly believe, Teresa, the better question to ask is not what you do, is who are you? And I would love to have our audience know who you really are. So if you could please tell us who you really are, not because of what you do, but we really want to get to know who Teresa is. So if you could please tell us who Teresa really is.
Thank you. I am a daughter. Um, I am I keep thinking I'm a wise woman that is still in this learning phase of life. I am inquisitive by nature. I love life. To me, food is medicine. So I work with incredible women. I work with, and basically right now, I'm a creator with an phenomenal group of women that we are working together to build. How do I put it? Because I'm teasing certain things out. Because that's the thing. I'm
Tease us. We want to be teased.
There we go. I'm a teaser, and I'm loquacious, and I'm a lover of life, and I'm very positive. I enjoy sunrises and sunsets, and I had to learn that, when the clouds and the rain and the storms, the impending storms that always do happen, that really it's just a curtain, that behind there is some sunlight and some sunshine and some positivity. So, and that's just it. Is I'm reclusive sometimes. I'm introspective. I I love to help. I love to give love and support, and I'm not always the best with receiving it or asking for help. So I communicate a lot, and yet sometimes people don't hear from me. And so I'm working on improving some things that are skill sets that I always thought that I had. And so ultimately, I'm a work in progress.
But when you really think about it, Teresa, we're all a work in progress in one way, shape, matter, or form. And sometimes, I'm glad you talk about, sometimes you have to be kind of reclusive to a certain degree. And what I've shared with many people is about recognizing balance, because balance is in every aspect of our lives, whether we realize it or not. Because if we don't have that balance, what do we become? We become imbalanced, do we not, Teresa?
Absolutely. And that's just it. Balance is it's integral. The yin yang, the light dark, the happy sad. It balance is so important. And I think that's, you bring up such actually a phenomenal point about it, because that's just it. Is sometimes we try to balance the balance. I think a lot of times right now we're in this trying to make sure that we are balanced. And it's really when you're in the flow, then you're not thinking about it. You're just doing it. And it's something that really has come home to me where when the Nike slogan of just do it, or actions more than words, and all that. And the reality is there's so much that goes on behind the scenes of a person, or behind the scenes of a creation of a nonprofit or a business or a family, that we we look at action as being like that's where the balance is, or that's where it's the go-getter and all that. And it's actually all of the behind the scenes. It's all of the thinking and writing and collaborating and creating that's where the balance lies for me these days.
Well said, well said. And Lowe's, glad to see you here today, ma'am. Glad that you're here
Thank
watching and
you.
taking it in today. I greatly appreciate you. But I can't be remiss of why you're here, Teresa. We're here to hear your story about who you really are. And
Right.
if you could please, we would love to hear the story of Teresa, how you start your on this great journey that is life, and where you have led yourself up to now, and how does that pan out, and what does that look like. And we would love to hear your story here today on Conversations for Humanity. So over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I would say family has become important to me yet again in terms of ebbs and flows. So I'm an only child in terms it's the lonely only or whatever. And being an only child of a single mom, when I was growing up, I really saw that I cared a lot for my family. I cared a lot for my mom. My mom was a teacher when I was growing up. And so I learned to speak phonetically. I love vocabulary. I wish I speak French and English, although, je parle français un très petit peu, and I'm learning Italian and all of these things when I was younger, with my mom being a teacher. And you go through rebelliousness, you go through independence. So I found myself, having graduated at 17. Basically, I'm going to try and run through things kind of quickly to get to part of some of the meatier, some of the more pertinent kind of parts of the conversation for us. But I was 17 when I graduated, and I knew at that time that I wanted to become an accountant. I had basically known in grade 10. And to me, accounting was balance. Accounting and finance it was important to have that balance. And that way I could be married and I could have a business. I could have a career, because I grew up in a Christian home. I grew up Presbyterian specifically. My grandfather was a Sunday school teacher. And so I grew up with a sense of tradition. I grew up with a sense of, a time period whereby women were still, the whole thing of, are you going to get married and stay home and raise children? Or are you going to go and get a career and be career driven? And I said, I'm going to do both. I even told my grandfather that. I was like, I'm going to do both. So I worked 3 jobs after I graduated from high school. And modeling was one of them, modeling for a very small agency in North Vancouver. And I'm only 5'3". So I was never destined to be a supermodel. I was never going to be, anything but the catalog model or whatever. And it's interesting because there's women in the beauty industry and the fashion industry were fraught with so much of it from an early age. And for example, at Paris Fashion Week, because I love fashion. Fashion is my passion, and I'm very involved with style and all that. And so right now, Paris Fashion Week has kind of just come to an end, and L'Oreal, and again, this is part of who I am. I go off on tangents and then I come back to my main point. And L'Oreal just held their walk, and it was women who are very successful in their field walking the catwalk, and they were like, I'm a supermodel, and they shared their experience. And the biggest takeaway is that you are worth it. The biggest takeaway is, you know, having respect and love for oneself and being authentic. And I would say from an early age, that's always been part of the balance that I've not just struggled with, that's part of the conversation that we have as people, is how do we be authentic and yet fit in to society, or how do we choose what we're going to do and all of that. And so I had always been a people pleaser. And so 3 jobs, and went to college and got my, I worked in accounting. So I'm going to fast forward. Working in accounting, I was going to become a trust accountant. I was going to go into forensics, and I was going to, take that tiny thread and unravel it, and, balance sheet and the P&L statement and all of that was my life. So I worked for Shoppers Drug Mart. Well, I started with a small small law firm. And then I went to a medium-sized law firm, Boughton Peterson Yang Anderson. And in working at that firm, I was just married. I grew up on the North Shore, as it's called, in North Vancouver. Coming from a small city in Ontario when I was 12, but growing up in North Van, I ended up getting married and moving to the Sunshine Coast, which is an island. So Jay Pasqua, living in Guam, he and I, his storytelling is not only...
Jay is great, absolutely.
Yes. And he was doing one of his storytelling and one of his Sunday morning conversations, and I related the fact that, I've lived on an island for many years. I lived over on the Sunshine Coast, which was the peninsula, and it felt like an island. So I moved there. I worked in Vancouver in accounting. And again, I think the point that I kind of want to land it on for a moment and go back to you is that I've always been trying to find the balance. So I love the city life because it's where work is vibrant and challenging and successful and moves quickly and makes you money. Whereas the island life or the rural life, where I bought my house with my husband and all of that, that was my family. That was my comfort of how I grew up, how I was raised in a smaller city, and we had the cottage every summer. And so I still strive for that in terms, I love living in the city. However, I need to be close to the ocean or close to the mountains because I need my me time. And I think that that's something that, again, it's knowing who you are. You and I have talked about this on other conversations. Knowing who you are means being able to say, I am all of these things, and not all of them are going to work for every person. And being a people pleaser does not bode well then for having authenticity. Because when you're a people pleaser, and this is the kind of the journey that I found I was going on, because I was in accounting and I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. I was married, going to have a family and all of that stuff. And it's not that I wasn't happy, but I wasn't happy. I was not enjoying the work that I was doing. So I was phoning it in to the accounting, to the law firm in a way. And I had challenges with my marriage that I didn't address directly, that I didn't address right away because I wanted it to be a good, happy marriage. And the reality is that I married a man who, and this is me being very vulnerable because I don't talk about this a lot, but I married a man who, unbeknownst to me, he had been very involved in cocaine before, and he had a problem with that, and he was a con artist basically, and he had bad behaviors, and he hid those from me, and those bad behaviors led to him being abusive towards me, and it was very challenging because I worked for a law firm, and yet I would go home, and there's no way that I could tell anyone. At that time, the laws were different. At that time, um, which it's still going on now. Women speak up years later because we didn't think that we would be believed. And it's not only women, there's men who go through this as well. So it's because it's not a gender thing, it's a human thing. And what I love about our conversation, because this isn't something that I expected I would really dwell into or delve into, because I try to keep things positive. However, to be really honest about my authenticity and who I am now today, I went through a very, very challenging time whereby I lost everything. I lost my marriage, my house. I went to a transition home while I was working for this law firm. And then the law firm I got laid off from because it was merging, and it was just what was happening in the 90s. And I had to rebuild myself at 24. And I felt like a failure in a lot of ways, but I would say that I never wanted to say that. I hid myself away from life and a lot of the people who may have been able to help me because I didn't want to be vulnerable. I was such a people pleaser, and it was so important that people thought highly of me, and they saw this well-styled, well, perfect together person. And from that took me 10 years, believe it or not, with therapy and people and all rebuilding and all of that, to move through to a healthy, and it's something I don't think we talk about enough in terms of we live lives. It's always this whole thing of don't get involved in a relationship until you're at a healthy place, because we go through these ups and downs. And the reality is we live through, and it's the people that are around us that help us get back to a healthy, happy, solid standing. And so it's something, again, it's why I guess this conversation is really important, because it's not all sunshine and bells and whistles. I'm very proud of my career, myself, my friends, my family. And that wasn't always the case. In terms, I'm 53 now, and I am still, as I say, a work in progress. So a lot of the work that I do now is collaborative, is positive, and it's to show that, I may look like I have it all together. Even, today I've just come from weeks of having my health be very challenged, and I'm very stubborn. So I think I can do it all on my own, and I sequester myself, and I don't communicate as much. And it's not out of disrespect to other people, and it's seeing that other side now that people could view it differently. People might think it's disrespectful, or they might get upset and all that. And it's, again, I kind of want to put it back to you now, because I love having meaty, like I always say, "Oh, we're just in the shallow waters now, aren't we? We're just delving into shallow stuff."
Going back to that song, of course, from Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper, "The Shallows." That was a great song, and I'm glad you brought "The Shallows" up. But for me though, in hearing this right now, Teresa, I now first and foremost, I can be completely honest. You're blowing my mind right now. You really are, because I too had to go through people in my life that had to go through that addiction phase in their life in one way, shape, matter, or form. And a lot of it was due to alcoholism, number one, and the other one was drugs. My mother was big into cocaine herself. Uh, she really had to have her fix every now and then if it wasn't that, she had to go to marijuana, or then she'd get on the bottle and that kind of thing. So I've seen that firsthand because I had to live through it when I was a kid, so I've seen it. And but when you're in a marriage dynamic as such as yourself of going through that, and again, like you said, you actually had to find out that the husband that you really wanted to spend the rest of your life with turned out to be a con artist in and of itself. I gotta ask you this, and I've been married twice in my life.
Mhm.
Thank God it's only been twice, because the wife that I have now is literally a gift in God in and of itself. But when he presented himself to you in that way, that he was that con artist, did you actually have to take a step back and say, "Oh my gosh, is this really happening to me? Is this actually a guy who is actually throwing me through the ringer and literally taking probably every piece of me and really not showing me what I could truly have with him?" I mean, how did that play out?
Hmm. Um, it's a great question that you asked, because I would use the analogy of, um, when when there's a fire, when there's a fire in your house or whatever, you are so busy putting out the fire
Mhm.
that you're not, um, your brain may have these thoughts that come in of how did it start, where did it start, this and that. However, you are so busy trying to put out the fire. And the analogy that I would use further is, you put the wrong retardant on that fire. So you think that you're tamping it down, you think that you're going to put the fire out, and the fire goes from being a small brush, like a small fire, to the flames engulfed, and everything was gone in that regard.
Mhm.
And I say that because, whew, again, I was living on the Sunshine Coast, and I owned a house with this man, and I, um, believed in. I He had said he was an alcoholic, so I actually had gone to Al-Anon meetings while he was going to AA meetings. And whether he was or not an alcoholic, what he was hiding was his drug use and abuse. And, it went down such a far rabbit hole in terms of, I lost my house, I lost everything in terms of, because I had gone to a transition house, I had to get a court order to get back into my house myself. Um, my, um, husband, he actually had forged a document saying that, I had sold my portion of the joint tenancy of the house. So the realtor had the house for sale. And then the realtor, and again, the question that you asked, the reason I'm saying this is because this is what I mean is, I didn't even have a chance to think, is this really happening to me? Or how did this happen, or anything? Because it just kept getting worse and worse. Because, um, at the time, again, I was not only had felt alone. It's the stigma. It's that whole thing of you feel embarrassed and ashamed. A person, whether, no matter, as I say, that's why it's not gender, and it never has been. It's just the statistics show greater numbers of women than men, right? But for a person, the guilt and shame that you have, so I tried to hide things and all of that. And unfortunately, I would say that is something that it's again only been recently that I've realized I need to do a deep dive. And what I will say, which is, it's so interesting, I love this organic conversation and all that, because um, now in wisdom, and now with so much experience having happened to me, including all of that, because when you say, how did you deal with it and all that, it's like I had to go to therapy. I've
Mm-hmm.
gone to therapy many times over it, and I think that everyone has different ways. There's different types of therapy. Um, there's, people have asked me, should I go on medication and all of that, and for me, it's not that medication is a bad thing. It's everyone has free will and everyone needs to do it their way. And because I do believe the food industry and the pharmaceutical industry, and there's a whole thing of why I work in the field that I do now, is about organic. And the biggest aha moment that I had today is, it truly is what we feed our body with, our mind, body, and soul, our thoughts and our pictures in our head that we feed every day. It's really is what shapes and shows our reality. So for me, if I look back at that 23, 24-year-old me, I was so scared of just saying, not only I need help, but saying I got in over my head and I didn't know not only how to deal with it. And it's one of those things, because I always expected that I knew how to deal with it
Mm-hmm.
and that I was the authority on how to deal with it. And that's been part of my archetype in a way. Um, and there's 12 archetypes, and I've just come to this aha moment. And there was, again, I'm going to put it back over to you for a minute, because I'm going to say I was on X this morning, and I can't think of the person that I should credit it to, but they said they had a writing exercise that they had to do at their writing class in Harvard. And so they had to write a story, and it they sent it in, it came back, and had red ink all over, and it said, rewrite with every paragraph having purpose. So they went through and they rewrote, and every paragraph had purpose. They sent it back in, came back, red ink all over it. Rewrite with every sentence having purpose. Did that. They sent it, got it back, red ink all over it. Rewrite that every word has purpose. Did that, sent it back, and it came back with very good feedback. And the next instruction was, now write this from the opposing viewpoint. So they had to then write the story from the beginning, in terms of write the story from a viewpoint that they did not believe in, and then take it and write it so every paragraph had purpose, then every sentence had purpose, then every word had purpose. And that, in a way, Chris, that is me in
Mm-hmm.
terms of I need to see, because going back to, how you go through things, how I went through it and like what I thought, I need to learn, know, and understand everything. And then I have this curiosity and a need to understand the other side and be objective, because I'm not objective about what I believe in, but I can be objective because quite often we are, not only objective, we object to the other viewpoint. And so I'm in this era now of revisiting right back to what I talked about. How did I get married to that man? Why did I go through what I did? Why was I that way? What did I allow? Because my narrative used to be, it happened to me. And my narrative now is, it happens for me. And that, I think, is a huge aha moment for us when I can now say, I married a man that I believed I was going to be with for the rest of my life. And when I found out that that man was not the man that I knew, I kept trying to make it work, as opposed to accepting and looking at that opposing viewpoint and and how do I put it? Basically, supporting that opposing viewpoint. And that actually is how I look at life right now.
And I'm glad you brought that dynamic into play, and I'm glad you're being so vulnerable today, because vulnerability again goes to who you are. But also, I can't be remiss in the way you're sharing this with us today, of recognizing again, like what you just said, life happens for us rather than to us. Because again, I actually fundamentally believe that everything is literally regulated and around choice.
Yes.
Because I truly believe choice is the ultimate path to freedom.
Yes.
And when we allow choice in our lives, not a decision, because here's why I say decision is not probably the path to take for a lot of us.
Yeah.
The root word of decision means is to cut off. Now, why in Sam Hill would you like to cut ourselves off from something that might be beneficial to us, even though it might be a marriage that literally we thought it was going to be something so great, so really right for us, and we were just so gung ho on it, count me all in,
Yeah.
but turned out they were actually the total opposite of what we expected or even saw. But you know what you did? You may have went through the turbulent times and you had to go through all the stuff that you had to go through. But you said to yourself, in one way, shape, matter, form, Teresa, and I truly believe in this, that you said, you know what? I'm not going to let this slow me down and get me to where I want to go in life. I know, again, going back to what that guy did with writing of the whole article or story or whatever. You said, you know what? I'm going to rewrite my life and my story to where it does have purpose here. It does have purpose here. It does have purpose here. Because maybe the purpose was he showed up in your life to show you a better way forward. I mean, am I kind of getting that right to what you have had to
You
learn
are.
go through and to where you are today?
You are, absolutely, absolutely. And again, it's in doing the shadow work. It's in doing the, like, one thing I find very interesting in life is, and the reason I find it interesting is because I have to look at myself in some cases, because I find marketing and a lot of things are, the negative is said in order for the positive, reasons for buying it or buying into it
Mm-hmm.
are done. And and that again is because it's the same, the news cycles, even our stories, right? Like I could sit and I could tell the world about the the farmers market that mom and I go to every Saturday and how important that is and how that's our time together. I could talk about the incredible wines that I am honored to be able to be tasting coming up into this next weekend for a WSET level 1 class that's being taught with a group of incredible individuals. And all of these things, while they're great, it's always the negative and or the I don't like to use the word negative, the challenging, right?
Mm-hmm.
The shadow side, the um, the stuff that the hard hills to climb
Mm-hmm.
are the ones that when we get to the top, and I've only just thought of it this way now, in terms of a mountain is widest at the bottom, and then the peak is quite tiny.
Correct.
And so two things come to mind because it's always, going up the mountain and you get to the peak and it's basically you celebrate, it's the success because it was arduous, it was challenging, it was, and the at the bottom is the larger of the challenges and all that. And at the top is the abundance of the
Mm-hmm.
success. And again, it goes back to that article about how it was written in terms, get right down to each word. And at the top of the mountain, there is the valley of the next mountain that we climb.
Correct. Correct.
And that, again, I think this is a very interesting aspect because in life, it's that thing of, oh, well, get that job, get that career, get that marriage, have that car, have that house, move to this place, do this, have that vacation. And again, this is definitely where happiness is the way in terms there's always going to be challenges. And so it is finding the happiness in the smallest sweet spot in the, over the last almost 3.5 years, they've been some of the most challenging years of my life. And I will say that and that includes what I went through with my marriage, because I thought I found the love of my life. I met the most amazing, magnificent man and experienced a level of love that I had never experienced before. And
Mm-hmm.
being into my 50s, I was just going into being 50 years old. And we were both at the same place of wanting to be with each other for the rest of our lives. And it didn't, and something happened and changed, and he broke up with me. And I'm very loyal. I'm a very loyal person in friendship. I'm actually very loyal in business. I procrastinate and all that, but I'm incredibly loyal in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so the last 3+ years had been very, very challenging because accepting that someone who has said that they are at that same peak and not only want to enjoy that peak, it's almost like you just want to jump from peak to peak.
Yeah.
And the reality is it's in the trenches, it's in the peaks, or pardon me, it's in the valleys of our family and friends and business associates where that's where the strength lies in
Mm-hmm.
going through these things together, and we support each other. The group of women that I'm with right now, they've been incredible. They've been amazing with their grace, their patience, with their help, their understanding. Instead of, anybody could, you even with us meeting today, everyone's been so gracious, and it's so appreciated because it's something that I do my best to give, because I miss that man that, the love of my life. He was my best friend and my lover and my partner in life and my just everything. And again, that's where, it's really this acceptance of when someone says they want to do this, they want to be this, they want to complete this with you, and then they change their mind what seems like out of the blue when it's not out of the blue. There's the Gottman Institute has a fantastic way of putting it. We have bids for attention every day as humans. We are bids for attention between couples, between partners, between people. And as you say, you've got a fantastic marriage, you have a fantastic relationship, and that is because you cultivate it. So a bid for affection or attention is, when you say, oh, like for myself, it would be, oh, like that, look at that bird, hun. Isn't that amazing? And, the partner is just like still reading the paper or on the phone or whatever, and doesn't really engage with that, or isn't doesn't have to be as excited or whatever, but doesn't accept the bid. And then it's kind of like a tennis game, right? Lobs it back and builds on that. And I think that actually is where relationships, I now cultivate very small groups. The people that I have in my life, they're incredibly important to me. They are, again, patient, gracious. We don't always agree, and we've learned to agree not to disagree, or to agree to disagree, or we've learned all of these things. And so again, it kind of gets back to bring my point back around of the life is a series of mountain ranges and a series of oceans and a series of sunrises and sunsets, and it's all incredible. And when we can find, and Michelle Ramos, I have so much respect for her, for you.
Michelle's fantastic, absolutely. She's just awesome.
Gem, Noni Virani, gem, absolute. I think so highly of her, and I know that she
And Nani too, absolutely.
what she does is she brings the light of other people, which is what you do. Keith Kuperman, incredible, wonderful man. Jackie Hallberg, the work that she is doing. All of these people, and everyone, Eni Osung, with the work that he does with his people, Paulette, and the book that she did. And again, I could name so many people, and Leslie Flowers, the work that she does and has done. And we're all humans. And what's interesting is the tribe. I always say we vibe with our tribe. And so, and it's also really interesting in that regard, because we don't, well, I'll say for myself, I have taken the time this last 3+ years to work through, to see my shadow side and to become friends with it. I think it's one of the most important things. I think, the quicker that we do it, the earlier we do it. And not to the point of being like, oh, it's okay to be this way, or, like, accept me. How do I put it? I used to always say, because it's a Marilyn Monroe thing, if you can't take me at my worst, then you don't deserve me at my best. Which, I believe in that still to a point. And at the same time, this is where the peaks and valleys, it's also seeing and respecting and understanding the other person. And when one can be in their own stuff and going through their own stuff and still have the understanding and ability to go outside of themselves and go, hey, Chris, thank you for this time and this conversation. And I like, it's almost, for me, it's almost, again, it's not easy for me to just talk about myself or be incredibly vulnerable without going back to you. And because I want to find out about you, or I want to share and exalt you or other people and all of that. And it's because I found that the reason that we are in service is because when we go outside of ourselves and we go to exalting and appreciating and having gratitude and helping, supporting other people, that is our being in service to people or to business or climate or economics and all that, it fills our cup back up in a way that there is no amount of riches, there is no amount of gold or silver or diamonds that can do quite the same thing as being in service with people and for people.
And that goes right back to what I've said many times on these programs, on LinkedIn audios, or literally in front of people. That the next currency of humanity is going to be rooted in value and not money. Because again, if we deem people as priceless in and of itself, the very value they bring to the table is priceless in and of itself in that kind of dynamic. Because again, I recognize this, Teresa, and you probably have seen this far longer than me. Is we're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And again, like you said, there's some people in your life that you can say, hey, we can agree to disagree, but we
Mm-hmm.
can still be in a collaborative or cohabitive kind of dynamic, and we can literally be there in that space together.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing about that, though, is it's when you are willing to let go. And I truly believe in the art of letting go. If you're willing to let go of everything that you fear to lose and fear to hate, or even go through the suffering of the things that have gone through your life,
Yeah.
then you know on the other side of that, that when you were at the lowest of lows, that you were in that deep trench or that black hole or whatever that might have been for you, that you know when you get to the peak, it's going to be well worth it, because you're willing to not only put in the work, but you're willing to probably lift somebody up along the way, because you know it's not about you, it's about them. And when you put it in that context,
Yeah.
then again, that very thing of we rise by lifting others, we rise with them, because that's absolutely a true dynamic. It's there.
Yeah.
We really forget what really interconnects us all, Teresa, in one way, shape, matter, form. And I truly believe the one thing that we share is far more in common to us than we give ourselves credit for, which is that very humanity. And once we tap into that very humanity, yes, we may not be their cup of tea. We may not even see eye to eye on all different kind of things. But when we show up with our very humanity, we do it from intentionality. We allow flow and change to be there. Then we allow alignment and agreement to be there. Because again, if you create that space and place with them, that they can say, hey, I might not be in agreement with Teresa, but I might just be in alignment, or it might be vice versa.
Yeah.
But you give them that place and space, that you take that journey with them and them with you, to such an extent they can get to the other side, and let that be. I mean, is that the way you live your life too, as well, now, since you've gone what you've gone through?
Yeah, I'm striving to. I strive to, because it's I grew up with um I grew up with not feeling safe. I
Mm-hmm.
grew up with unfortunately I raised my mom more so than she raised me. She was a single mom, and she deserves so much credit and incredibility for things. And at the same time, and my grandparents raised me more than that, but I raised my mom, and I did not have, not only I did not have the feeling of safety as a
Mm-hmm.
child, I encountered um, all most all forms of abuse, mental, physical, verbal, sexual, by the time I was 12. And so the answer to your question is I strive to. And what's really interesting is, it's how to live a healthy, wonderful life that's full of experiences. Sleep is so important, and how we prepare ourselves for sleep, and then how we wake up, and those thoughts that we put in are so very important. So 4 years ago, and it wasn't because of COVID, it was because of how of what I did not have when I was raised in the environments, in terms I did not feel I was safe. And Maslow, I talk a lot about Maslow's hierarchy these days because
Yes.
we're in that, we're many of us, even people who I know who are incredibly successful, and they have anxiety, and they go through the Maslow's hierarchy in terms of the basic needs of oneself: food, water, housing, safe are those are all safety. And so 4 years ago, I remember saying to my person who I thought was my person for life, that every day that I woke up, I would need to kind of put an affirmation, or I would need to say, I am safe, I am safe. And so over these last 4 years, I would say, because again, I strive to live that way that we're talking about. I strive to live positively. I strive to live with grace, and I strive to live with be curious, not judgmental. I listen to my intuition, because I realized that safety comes from within, first off. And so, I went from having to say those words every day, and they they stuck. And not only they stuck, it's the challenges and the, being like, oh, I have this coming up, or I have this challenge, or I didn't do this, I didn't follow through on this, and I have to face that. And how does one do it? So I strive to really be, I'm not perfect. I'm human, and I'm proud to be human, because being human means that, what, we err, we make mistakes. I strive to not make the same mistake twice, although I have realized that if and when we do make the same mistake twice, the blessing is the lesson in it. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, in terms I'm more hopeful than I had been over these last 3+ years, because I found more hope within myself again. I went through a really dark night of the soul several times over these last 3+ years. And I'm very, very thankful and grateful to all people, including you, the LinkedIn community. Nancy Anderson, like, I have to say, that woman she is authentic and awesome. And it's partly because your conversation that you had with her, where you showcased her, and we were on it, that led to us booking and doing this today. So that's the beautiful thing in life, is
Yes.
the things that we do today, right now, are the things that will create our future. And that's where, life happens for us.
Hmm.
Better and better.
Absolutely, and I love that. And like I said, Keith is just a great guy. Like I said, Michelle is a great guy. Annie too as well. Leslie too as well. They're all great people.
Sama is fantastic over in India. There's so many incredible people that,
Yeah.
um, and many of these people I haven't met in person. Many of these people, like you and I, only met through video, and the conversations that we've had through our audio or video
Hmm.
conversations. And that is definitely where, as you say, you talked about, the next currency. And I think it's actually not even the next currency. I think
It's
that
already there.
it's just it. And it always has been.
Mhm.
Our energy is currency in terms, and it's vital. It is where I know there's conversations where people say, and I've had it said to me, and it's been challenging and hurtful when someone said, oh, you're draining, or they pointed something out and they said, I've said this before or whatever, and it's like it not only didn't feel good at the time, it though not only gave me pause for thought, and because it's twofold. One, they're telling you something, so they're giving you information. And so again, it goes back to the paper, right? It's like, well, when you investigate, when you go to the other side and look at it, it also, though, excuse me, um, it also means what's going on for them. It's their perception, their
Yeah.
perspective. I'm going to have to mute myself for a moment while I cough. Hang on.
You're good. You're good. But like again, I'm just so humbled and honored that you have shown up with us today and shared your story, and of course being vulnerable, because being vulnerable is a part of who you really are and everything. But I can't be remiss in taking this away from the conversation today, is that maybe when we just show up as who we really are and we don't expect anybody to take us for what we're not,
Yeah.
but really take us for who we really are,
Well,
it's a totally different dynamic, because we could go on to what I've said before, and I know it's going to be another conversation we'll have, is that sometimes that perception can lead into a place of deception if we allow that to occur. Because again, we only know what we know, and then again, we only see what we see. But again, like what you said before, if we could step outside of ourselves and see the other point of view on that, yeah, we may not even agree with it, we may not even like it, we may not even be in alignment with it. But if we can have enough curiosity in mind to really dig deep into that and choose that curiosity over class, I truly believe it gets the conversation more in depth, more in scope, to such a degree that it's pivotal to the growth and thriving opportunities, not only from the conversation that you have, but also how you even show up to that. Because then again, if you close yourself off to that, then you don't have another opportunity to do this, another opportunity to that, or even create impact not only in your life but in the lives of others. But I that's what I really believe in these calls for, to really do that, because you just don't know until you're willing to let everything in and let it sink in, and again, take the time to not only reflect on it, but also to see it for what it really is. So I love this conversation with you today, Teresa. I greatly appreciate it. But this is your show, and I want for you to share your final thoughts and give maybe some words of wisdom on Wisdom Wednesday. And I like want to make that about you today. And please share, what is your words of wisdom on Wonderful Wednesday. And thank you so much
um,
for being here.
thank you so much, and you encapsulated so much. I would say, believe in oneself is one of the most important things, and being excuse me, um, yeah, being gentle on oneself at times, and then being like, okay, the biggest takeaway for me is the learning to laugh at oneself, learning to laugh with oneself. That is one of the most freeing things, because like I love the work that I do. I've been, working for 23 plus years in wine and food and hospitality, and I have incredible, not only stories, but experiences, people. And I work in food security now. I work with an incredible team of women, that what we're creating is going to be a legacy that, builds and grows. And so that collaborate, share, and again, my wisdom Wednesday is, it definitely is all about dancing in the rain. It is it is about absolutely finding some way to dance and smile and laugh through all of life's little things, because then once you've once you've gone through those together, and I will say, I pop a bottle of champagne and I cheers with the people that I'm with, and then we know it's going to be like, well, let's do something different all over again. That's life.
Now, Teresa, you make me think of that great 1950s movie with Cary Grant of Singing in the Rain.
Yeah,
Because that's a classic. I love that. I'm glad you brought that up because Singing in the Rain is probably not only a great way to wash away everything, but it's a great way to be rejuvenated in and of itself. And I love that.
it is. It is.
So,
And
as always, Teresa, thank you so much for just showing up and being who you are and everything like that. Looking forward to speaking and collaborating with you moving forward and everything like that. And if you would like to come share your story on Conversation for Humanity, I've always put it in the comment section of all our platforms today. So it's also on Facebook and our LinkedIn page and also on YouTube. We would love for you to come share your story on Conversations for Humanity. And this show is always about you and everything like that. So again, great parting words yet again, Teresa, on Wisdom Wednesday. Now I have to remember that now. It's Wisdom Wednesday. I like it, but also it could be wonderful too as well. So it'll be Wisdom Wonderful Wednesday. I love that. I can do that. So Teresa, thank you so much. You have a great day. Make your day, and thanks to all of you watching too as well. And we will love to see you on the next Conversation for Humanity. So all of us here are bringing humanity together in an adaptive strategies group. Have a great day, making your day on this wonderful Wisdom Wednesday. Have a great day, everyone.
thank you for your time.